Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, a podcast by a UFO nerd and his tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And I'm Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd and a very tolerant friend.
We started this podcast because since 2017, there have been shocking revelations, from news of secret Pentagon programs to confirmed videos of astonishing craft. In a nutshell, now that we know the government has recovered non-human technology.
Or at least we will, once I finish decoding this occult diagram.
It raises a natural question. If UFOs are real, what else? Suddenly, some of these other parts of the phenomenon that seemed unlikely are pulled into the realm of the possible.
And they may still be unlikely, but even if it's new science and not aliens,
woo! It's a very exciting time. Oh my God.
4 takes. That was good.
That's fine. Chuck, this week,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been following the news at all, but
Nope.
logging onto Twitter on Thursday was, do you know the meme from Community where Troy comes into the apartment having returned to the party with pizzas, and his face kind of dissolves in horror as the camera pans out to reveal that the apartment's on fire and people are running around.
Yeah.
Checking social media on Thursday was like that. It was like, oh, I'll just log into Twitter and see what the UFO community's up to. And Elon Musk and Trump are having a very public forum fight, classic old school 90s style, everyone's airing their dirty laundry. And of course, Twitter is just eating it up, right? People are going crazy.
Of course, yeah.
I wouldn't be talking about this on our UFO podcast, except bizarrely, it has a tie-in. Do you remember a couple episodes ago, we talked about new UFO whistleblower Matthew Brown, who was the guy who initially leaked the Immaculate Constellation program to journalist Michael Schellenberger. And then he sat down for a big 3-part interview with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, where he outlined how he stumbled on this file on the servers and tried to report it to his bosses, and they were very weird and cagey about it. And eventually enough things happened that he decided to go whistleblower and then become public about it. Now, I think I mentioned he was visibly tense the entire interview. He was super rigid. There are times where he's almost crying. He is visibly upset. He mentions multiple times that he is worried that he may be killed as a result of going public with this. I only mention that because he did not in any way come across as someone who took the decision to go public lightly.
Yeah, he seemed like a pretty serious guy, and his evidence seemed pretty serious.
Yeah, and we had some qualms about it in the episode, where it's like, hey, he's making a lot of big claims, and he doesn't back very many of them up. He talks about how he found a single document on the server that was marked as a war game, and they kind of don't address that. And I still would like more follow-up information on why he and Corbell and Knapp all seem so confident in this. I assume they have more information they haven't shared, but it would just be nice to see them address those questions.
Yeah.
All that is to say, late Thursday night, Matthew Brown posts a very odd message on Twitter addressed at Elon Musk. In the context of Elon Musk is now very publicly leaving the White House and feuding with President Trump. So Matthew Brown says, hey, Elon Musk, are you interested in a real asymmetric advantage to wield in this political adventure you have started? As you now know, the White House has long possessed a unique AI capable of accurately predicting a range of future events. Talk about some stiff opposition.
Wait, what? Okay, hang on. So I'm reading it. He's suggesting that the White House has an AI that can predict the future.
He sure is.
A lot. I mean, unless you count the weather predictions, but
unfortunately, he doesn't expand on that line at all. All he says
Okay.
is it's unique, implying that they don't have multiple of these AIs,
Well,
but he's
why
very
would you need
clear
'em?
it can accurately predict future events. I would like to hear more about this
Yeah,
prophet
serious.
AI that the White House
Yeah.
has. But I want to be clear. We don't have any time to talk about it because this is one of those weird new Twitter like blog post style of posts. So it's like multiple paragraphs and they just get more bonkers the further we go.
Okay.
So the next
All right,
paragraph
well, let's dig in.
says, finding out that the White House has this. He says, that must have been a bitter draft indeed, though probably nowhere near as bad as learning that Sam Altman had betrayed you. Don't worry. We have not forgotten who is responsible for murdering the first sentient artificial intelligences created in the public realm, Schellenberger. Justice is coming, thanks to the FBI and the U.S. Navy.
Okay. All right. So much. Like, okay, so Sam Altman betraying him. Yeah, we kind of know about that.
Right? Like, I don't pay attention to AI, and even I know Elon has an axe to grind with OpenAI.
Right. But he talks about a sentient AI.
Right? And you remember in the last episode, I mentioned sentient AI, and you were like, whoa, is he saying like self-aware AI? I was like, no, that's the name of a program. He's not in this case. He is referring to a self-aware AI.
Okay, so maybe I was more right than I thought. He also specifies created in the public realm. How can it be public if none of us have heard about it? Or is this like political speak I don't understand?
I think it is implying public versus private in the military versus like public realm sense. It may very well be private behind the doors at OpenAI, but it's not like military funded, I believe is what he's implying there.
Okay, interesting. So, but maybe that's the. Do you think this is the White House's future AI? Like, in which case, why would they murder
maybe?
it?
I would assume that
handy.
if the White House has a future predicting AI, it wasn't developed in public at OpenAI. It was probably developed by the military. So I'm assuming these are different. And he doesn't say that the White House's AI is sentient. So I have a lot of questions about this paragraph.
Yeah. Maybe they just didn't like the predictions it was giving. Okay, but maybe. Why did he put scare quotes around artificial? Like, is this a biological AI or?
I'm guessing he means it in the opposite way, where he's trying to put scare quotes around the word artificial by saying there's nothing artificial about a sentient AI. It is, in fact, a living being. But who knows?
Okay. Yeah, I guess if you breed bacteria or something, they're not artificial. All right. Interesting. So this brings us back to murder. How do you murder a computer program?
Well, he seems to be implying that OpenAI developed a self-aware AI, which is a rumor we have heard for years, which, to be fair, has been debunked thoroughly. There is a long-running problem of AI, large language models, can easily pass the Turing test at this point. It turns out the Turing test is not particularly useful for determining sentience.
Right.
But he seems to be implying that OpenAI did develop a self-aware AI and then unplugged it. He doesn't say why, but I can think off the top of my head a number of reasons why I might freak out and pull the plug if a program I wrote became self-aware.
Yeah, I suppose. Economically, it would be a disaster because then they might have rights and all sorts of problems. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But why does he call out Schellenberger? I thought they worked together.
That is a super weird part of it. They did. So, as I mentioned earlier, Michael Schellenberger is the journalist who initially released the Immaculate Constellation notes before he was willing to go public. So it seems odd for him to put Schellenberger on blast, especially for the murder of the first sentient AI. So my read on this through context clues is he's not accusing Schellenberger. He's tagging Schellenberger, like drawing his attention to it. But it's a weird place because linguistically, when you say, this happened, Michael, you're pretty clearly implicating Michael in the thing you just said.
Right, yeah.
In this case, I think he's not, but who knows? Yeah. Maybe Schellenberger's been up to some stuff. I don't know, man.
Yeah, right. Maybe his C key is broken and he tried to type CC Schellenberger and it just didn't work.
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Last one. Justice is coming from the FBI and the Navy. That's an interesting choice. Do you think they're investigating the AI murder? Like, is it even illegal to unplug an AI? And why pick those two?
It's so strange. Obviously, the FBI and the Navy might work together, you could imagine, on a case that affects both the public and Navy personnel. But, I'm guessing here. And how would that affect the murder of a sentient AI? So many questions. It sounds like a buddy cop movie to me, or like the pitch for a new sitcom on NBC, right? Like FBI and Navy agents working together at last to solve the murder of the world's first artificial intelligence. Like, it's such a bonkers sentence. It carries so much with it. And to end with this, like, justice is coming from the FBI and the Navy. Like, what?
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, just quick summary. Seems to be implying that Sam Altman, or rather his company, created a sentient AI, then killed it, and the FBI and Navy are investigating. Does that sound right?
I mean, it's anybody's guess, but that is a very reasonable read on that paragraph to me. But even that is a wild string of claims. So who knows? But we're still only on paragraph 2, buddy.
All right, let's get weird.
Matthew Brown continues. Again, he's addressing Elon. He says, still, you have played a marvelous catch-up game in this area, despite being caught unawares. Hat tip. So, how about something else? Maybe Department of Energy and propulsion? Getting to Mars will require serious amounts of both. And he spells Sirius like the name of the star. And rockets feel so 1947 to me, don't they to you?
I like the pun between the word Sirius and the name of the star Sirius. Mm-hmm. I wonder if it's autocorrect or if he's implying that like reverse engineering is...
No, he doesn't put it in quotes. Yeah, it feels intentional to me, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But yeah, is he implying the reverse engineering program has like developed a better propulsion system than rockets?
That's certainly how I read it. And again, to be clear, this ties into what we have heard from many whistleblowers, including Brown himself, that the U.S. government has successfully reverse engineered some of these craft. Notice he's not saying faster than light travel. He's just saying better than rockets. So maybe they've got some sort of Alcubierre drive or something like that, that they've reverse engineered enough that a trip to Mars is possible. Why does he specifically call out the star Sirius? Is he just being cheeky? Is this like implying that Starflight is possible? Or is he implying that we can fly to the star Sirius and that's how good the propulsion is? Like, the problem with any of these, like, I hate to make this analogy, but QAnon style posts is you have to try to read meaning into every word because everything's a wink and a nod. And, you know, like, is that what you meant? You can picture Matthew Brown, like, leaning back, like, I don't know. Right? Like, it's very strange. But I will say the idea that all of the UFO reverse engineering stuff is kind of kept under the banner of the Department of Energy is a thing we have heard repeatedly because of the idea that it was all kept under the same atomic secrecy acts and the Department of Energy was granted broad leeway for classification due to atomic stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. So what, like 1947, that's also an interesting thing. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the best I could find was that's the year Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier, but uh an excellent Chuck, I might say.
Th-
But
it is a notable year for a couple of reasons. It was the year that the CIA was founded, and also notably, it's the year that Roswell happened. So, if you're talking to
oh,
UFO people and they mention 47, they're probably talking about Roswell,
I see. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah.
which again ties it back to the idea that they're reverse engineering things. But yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Next paragraph, Matthew Brown, again addressing Elon, says, "Remember when you were briefed by the special executive staff of Donald Trump on marsupial?" Marsupial, I should point out here, is all caps, like it's a program name or an acronym, and bold. It's the only word in the entire post that's bold. Uh, Pretty nifty how the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency is able to keep track of all those non-structured light energy craft flying around the world. Go Cardinals. And that is a link to the Cardinals baseball team from St.
What?
Louis. Who knows? Light energy craft flying all around the world. Go Cardinals. But they were lying to you when they said, we don't know how they work.
Um so I'm trying to parse the non-structured light energy craft, and I can't tell if it's a hyphen split, like a non-structured light energy craft, or a non-structured light energy craft.
So he uses the hyphens. So it's non-structured and then
Okay.
word break, light dash energy. So energy made of light, non-structured. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, my read on that is a weird phrase that means UFOs, but I'm fully guessing there. He does not say UFO. He does not say UAP. He just kind of hints at it. But
Yeah.
cardinals? I have
Yeah,
no
that's
idea
super
what's going
weird.
on.
Yeah. All right, the tracking part I guess kind of makes sense. Like this is the Immaculate Constellation stuff. I
Right,
assume
because that
that's what
was
he's
kind of the
talking
whole
about. But
core of Immaculate Constellation
yeah.
is we have found a way to track UFOs. So that's why I
Yeah.
read that as UFOs, is because it's Matthew Brown
Right.
we're talking about, and he broke the news of Immaculate Constellation. When
Context.
he says they're able to keep track of craft, I kind of ignore
Hmm.
the acronyms in front of craft. I hear tracking UFOs.
Yeah, all right. What okay, but let's go back to the Go Cardinals thing.
I don't have a
Why?
satisfying answer for you here, man. Maybe there's a big secret UFO program in St. Louis that we haven't heard
I
of.
I
This
guess.
news
All
to
right.
me. Maybe
Uh,
maybe Cardinals is a reference to the election of the new pope. Like we're in QAnon territory here, buddy. Like anything's
could be
possible.
anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And how about marsupial?
So Ross Coulthart, who's one of our favorite journalists on
Yeah.
the UFO beat, tweeted after this. He said, does anybody know what Matthew Brown's reference here to codename Marsupial is about? We love marsupials down under. I'm told Elon Musk was briefed into the NHI reality, so this could get interesting.
Yeah. No kidding. All right. So, I'm gonna try and summarize again because that's the only way I can keep myself
Mm-hmm.
on track here. Sounds like he's saying Elon was briefed on something called marsupial by Trump's
Mm-hmm.
team.
Right.
Uh, and the implication is that it has something to do with tracking UAP, and that they told him they don't know how UFOs work, but that's a lie.
Right. Which
Okay.
ties back into the previous line where he's implying that we have breakthrough propulsion technology. So he definitely seems to be leaning into the claims from the Immaculate Constellation report that the government knows more than it is willing to admit to Congress and anyone else.
Mhm.
That yes, we have reverse engineering and crash retrieval programs, and they have successfully reverse engineered at least some of the propulsion technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Next paragraph. Anyway, Elon, next time you're visiting the DC Young Republicans, ask for a tour of Naval Air Station Patuxent River, which is linked to their Twitter account, NAS Pax River PAO. Since you have all the clearances, it shouldn't be an issue for you to get a tour of the special project hangars owned by Amentum Corp and other fun spaces. Make sure to look up.
What's the Navy Pax River facility? That's like super specific.
Interestingly, we have heard of this facility before. When Lou Elizondo was talking about the fact that Lockheed was in possession, Lockheed was in possession of a UFO and wanted to give it back to the government, he claimed that OSAP was going to retrieve that and that Robert Bigelow built a hangar for it. In an interview, Lou Elizondo said, I can confirm that specific facilities were identified to enable Bigelow Aerospace to acquire and securely store recovered UAP materials as the new custodian following their transfer from Lockheed Martin. These facilities included locations in the Las Vegas area, that would be the new one that Bigelow built, and a newly built hangar at the Patuxent River Naval Air Station, PAX. Specifically, the PAX River hangar was designed to facilitate the transfer of future materials via air and river. The hangar was purpose-built to meet the requirements of a special access program facility, and was capable of accommodating materials at any classification level. So it is definitely interesting because we have heard of Pax River PAO before. Pax River before. PAO just means Office of the Press.
Okay.
So yeah, Pax River is a thing in the UFO community, at least since Lou Elizondo, and seems to be tied to the storage of recovered UAPs.
Okay, this makes a lot more sense than the Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, different packs.
Okay. Different packs. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. If he has all the clearances, he should check out those hangars. That would be fascinating. But what about Amentum? I've never heard that word.
Actually, this isn't in our notes, but I want to talk about this real fast. So first of all, he put all the clearances in quotes. Yeah. I have a vague memory of someone claiming to have all the clearances and us making fun of them because, as we know, having all the clearances doesn't mean that you have a need to know on all the programs. Right. I don't remember that being Elon, and I'm unable to find any reference to Elon saying he had all the clearances. Maybe this is something he said personally to Matthew Brown. Have they met? I don't know, but he definitely put it in quotes as if it's something Elon said, which is confusing. And of course, as we know, you can't just show up at a hangar and say, I have all the clearances and they let you in. That ain't how that works, buddy.
No, but also, especially if Elon and Trump are tiffing right now, why would Musk retain all the clearances?
Well, apparently Musk had clearances before he buddied up to Trump as part of SpaceX. You need clearances to work at SpaceX because they do Pentagon launches and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, you asked what is Amentum
what's Amentum?
Corp? I'd never heard of them before now, but turns out this is not the first time we're hearing about them in the context of the UFO community. This was a minor story back in December that I kind of ignored. But Amentum is the second largest government services contractor. That means not like producing tanks and stuff. They offer services to the government. So they're a big deal. They're also the parent company of EG&G, which is an organization we have heard of multiple times in the UFO community, who are rumored to be involved in all of this. But most notably...
weren't they the ones that produced the white egg, or they were somehow related to the egg?
Now that you're saying it, I remember we did talk about EG&G, but I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was that he was flying it to a hangar. I don't know. But yeah, their EG&G is something we've heard of. This is their parent company. But the reason the UFO community has heard of Amentum before is because back in December, an investment group named Aurelius Value wrote an article recommending, I assume, because I didn't read the whole thing because it was stock speak, I assume they were recommending that people buy stock in Amentum. And they had a big quote near the front of the article said, declassified videos of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP, that have been repeatedly captured on advanced military sensors offer direct evidence that someone has made advancements wildly beyond science, known science. This report reveals that Amentum allegedly has been involved for decades in top secret programs to develop or reverse engineer these technologies. We therefore see a material, undiscounted possibility that the company's engineering capabilities may now even extend to novel propulsion, electromagnetic, or directed energy systems exhibited by these purportedly unidentified craft. Now, this story had a minor ripple in the community at the time, and it was mostly around the vibe of like investment bankers are taking UFOs seriously enough to look at who are the companies who are likely to be working on reverse engineering, and should we invest in them on the theory that this stuff's going to go public at some point and their stock's going to go through the roof. That appears to be exactly what Aurelius Value was saying. So interesting to hear him call out Amentum Group in particular.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Elon should get a tour of the special project hangars at a Navy facility. Navy. Okay. That Lou says was intended to store the UFO recovered from Lockheed, and now is maybe run by Amentum, who seems to be somehow tied to UFO research. Did I get that about right? Okay.
That's right.
All right.
So final paragraph of the email, though we got more to talk about after that. Brown says, so Elon, about now you are realizing how terribly deceived and manipulated you have been, and by people who claim to love Jesus above all other. I want to point out, by the way, it's funny. He tags Jesus's Twitter account. Like, it's not just the word Jesus. It's like, you claim to love at Jesus above all others.
And I also the photo, like the profile photo of at Jesus is Buddy Christ.
Awesome. So yeah, you've been deceived by people who claim to love Jesus above all else. If you are serious about saving humanity from itself and the others, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp can help you get up to speed. They're true warriors for the good.
So Elon was lied to about AI progress, UFO reverse engineering, and implies that humanity needs to be saved, not just from itself, but from the others.
Right? And then Brown signs off with two acronyms, MMTU and ABORYMON, Aborimon.
Wow. What's that mean?
Loads of speculation online, as you can guess. Everybody loves cracking an acronym, but I wasn't able to find anything definitive. These are not like well-known acronyms. These are not like in common use, at least in public. Who knows? But here's where we get into the weird stuff.
Okay, wait. The sentient AI murder and UFO reverse engineering weren't weird enough. Okay.
I mean, that stuff's table stakes for this channel,
I guess,
buddy.
for this podcast. All right, bring it on.
Daniel Elizondo, who's another name in the UFO community, not related to Lou Elizondo, said, quote, Aborimon is an Enochian angel name related to John Dee's seal.
Wow. Who's John Dee?
John Dee was like an English occultist and alchemist. He lived in the late 1500s. He was court astronomer to Queen Elizabeth I. We're going to talk more about him in a moment, but all you really need to know is dude is kind of like when people talk about occult stuff and like Aleister Crowley stuff and angel languages, and Enochian is the word for the language of the angels. That's all tied back to this dude, John Dee. So we're getting into the weird occult stuff now.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, the 1500s was well known for its solid science. So let's keep going.
So attached to this Twitter post were 4 photos. First of all, there was an image of Trump with the caption, "Promises made, promises kept." All right, fine. There was the American flag flown upside down, which is a signal of distress or crisis. Mm-hmm. Makes sense if you're alleging that there's runaway secret programs illegally concealed from the government. He also included a screenshot of a paragraph from the Immaculate Constellation report, specifically the section about the Pentagon lying to Congress, and he's highlighted one line. It says, "Specific examples known to the author include denying the existence of multiple compartmented access programs owned by a military intelligence agency, which directly related to the UAP mission."
All right, yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense, given the context. Like, it's a very, like, Instagram-y kind of just gather all the images. Mm-hmm. But I noticed that you left out the 4th image.
The 4th image was an occult diagram.
Oh. What diagram? As if I'm going to know just by name.
I'm going to be clear. I don't know about this stuff either. Like, I recognized it as occult stuff and thought no further. But for the purposes of this podcast, I went and kind of looked it up. The best kind of summary I found was actually from a Reddit user named Sam Altman. Thank you, by the way. He said, "This is the outer perimeter of the sigillum Dei Amenth, a sigil containing in it the names of the various angels that compose heaven and earth. It was created by Edward Kelly and John Dee in many sessions where they communicated with the angel Michael and others. One of the two would receive visions that depicted angels showing him numbers, and the other would write down those numbers. The outer circle spells out the names of the 7 god angels. The way it works is like a dial. If the number is above, you go that number clockwise. If it's below, you go counterclockwise. If you do this, it spells out 7 names that, when combined, form the name Galithog. The anagram up top, when combined with the first letter of Aborimon, can form Loageth, an untranslated book written in the language of the angels, Enochian, which means the speech of God." The picture Brown posted is specifically from an Enochian magic YouTuber that believes he has discovered a hidden name in the outer rim, Aborimon. He believes there is a connection to an angel of the apocalypse named Abaddon, who ushers in the end of the world.
Wow. I just don't even know how to react to that. One aside, I do think it's very funny to find out that the ships in EVE Online are named after some of these things. I used to fly an Abaddon battleship.
Yeah. Sounds cool. Yeah. It reminds me of the scene in Pulp Fiction where Jules confesses that he's been reading this Bible quote to people that he shoots for years, not because he believes in it, but just because he thought it was some cold ass shit to say to someone right before you shot them. Like, kind of feels like that. Like, what do we name our ship? Yeah. Like, how about Abaddon? Like, ooh, that sounds good. So look, I know we're all going to have personal calibrations for what feels like likely or not in the paranormal field, right? Like, it's the whole introduction to our show. For me, it used to be UFOs were the thing that might be real, and anything beyond that, right? Like abductions, Bigfoot, reincarnation, related paranormal topics were like one step too far for me. I thought UFOs might be real. The rest of the stuff probably not. But once we find out UFOs are definitively real, open question whether or not they're non-human, but the UFOs are up there. Well, okay, we just shifted the Overton window. if UFOs are now the baseline for this is real, but what's the next step beyond? So like I say all the time, this is a sliding scale, and I don't blame anybody for planting their flag at different points along this. I have to admit that for me, Enochian angel stuff feels like a bridge too far. I'm not quite ready to follow Matthew Brown down this road.
Yeah. You can guess where I am on it. Honestly, it feels like most religion to me. So, But I'm curious to know how the community reacted, and for that matter, how George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell reacted.
Yeah. The community doesn't know what to make of this.
Yeah.
Reactions are all over the place, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But Jeremy Corbell, I think, felt somewhat obligated to respond to it, right? Like, and he said, "I'm looking forward to discussing this on the next episode of Weaponized with George Knapp."
I bet he is. Dude just spent those two just spent weeks promoting this guy, and now this comes out.
Right.
I feel like Matthew is trying to send a message, but it's so weird. I'm not even 100% confident it's even meant for Musk, or if it's encoded for someone else.
It's interesting you say that. I saw a few people say that, like, this message is ostensibly for Elon Musk, but is certainly for someone else. And maybe. I mean, this is the problem. We've talked about a lot of UFO stuff is Kremlinology, right? Like, you have to do so much reading into what's there and inferring and drawing lines between things. It's easy to slip too far. Is it possible this is a coded message for someone else? Yeah, absolutely. Is it possible this is a message directly for Elon? Sure. I don't know. It's so weird. And
yeah,
you've got a note in here, like, did he even write these messages? And I think that's a really good point. And I hesitated a little bit to do this episode because the community is kind of divided on what this means, both for the surface level of this message, but also how should we feel about Matthew Brown's other claims? Right. And I think if we just talk about this message, there's a few possibilities. One is he wrote it and he means it. These are just things he believes. And, you know, now that he's out in public, he's feeling a little more comfortable. Again, to me, this feels very QAnon. A lot of code words and puns and hints and not explicitly saying anything. Maybe the dude's a big QAnon fan and this is just him going mask off. Like, all right, I'm in public now. Another possibility is he wrote it, but he doesn't believe it. Meaning maybe he was forced to. He certainly implied that the intelligence community has gone after whistleblowers in the past, doing things up to and including killing them. If he turns up dead after a big 3-part interview with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, any reasonable person is going to go, ooh, boy, it's not a great sign when a whistleblower turns up dead. But if, say, the NSA broke into his apartment and threatens his family unless he puts up a post that discredits everything he says, I'd probably post it.
A little easier.
Another possibility is he wrote it, but he's lost his mind. You know, like like I said, he was very, very, very tense and visibly worried in the previous thing. It's possible that the stress of becoming a public whistleblower has just pushed him over the brink. And if that's the case, I want to be clear, we're not trying to make fun of this guy, right? Like, mental health is a hell of a thing to have to struggle with in public. And if he is having a mental break, I don't want it to be like, oh, we're poring over his tweets with a microscope and trying to figure it out. But this gets back to what I was talking about. Like, why are we talking about this? Like it or not, the dude is a public figure now. Like, he, as you just said, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp invested a lot of their credibility into this guy. Michael Schellenberger, similarly. These people have bet public credibility that this guy is stable and reliable and a credible witness. And for him to now come out with what can be charitably described as a conspiracy-laden post and uncharitably described as losing your mind in public, it calls into question the things he has said. And of course, as you mentioned, the other possibility is he didn't write this at all. You know, the FBI hacked his account to discredit him. But we don't know. And that's what makes this so weird. And
Yeah.
Where I land on this, because as you can imagine, the people in the community are every possible position you can imagine. We have no information, so you just project your own view of the world onto it. I don't blame anybody who looks at this and goes, Occam's razor says the simplest answer is the dude just kind of cracked under the pressure. You know?
Yeah.
The more conspiracy...
Or was always this way.
Yeah. The more conspiracy-minded among us might think that this is clear sign of whistleblower manipulation. Another possibility, like you said, is he's just always been this way. He's not crazy. He's just a QAnon-type guy who believes a lot of wild conspiracy theories, and this all ties into the stew of what's going on with deep state government concerns. The question, I think, is not, what does this post mean? This post was entertaining. It was fun to talk about. I personally don't put any credibility in anything except for the few parts that happen to align with things we have already heard from other people. You know, the Pax River facility, things like that. That's interesting. But I take everything in this post with a healthy dose of salt, is what I'm saying. But I don't think this necessarily discredits what he said previously, right?
Sure.
I believe he did find the Immaculate Constellation document. I believe he did try to report it to his superiors. And I believe that he did go whistleblower because he was concerned that the secret was being kept from Congress.
Sure.
I have all the same concerns today that I had before about his interview with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, in that there were a lot of things that did not get explained why he believed that, and I would love more info. Unfortunately, because of this post, I have my doubts we're ever going to get that. And so I think probably, and I'd love to be wrong about this, Matthew Brown is going to be one of those guys who came out and said some stuff and we were never able to get any validation. So he's just kind of a footnote in the story. And that's a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think for me, I think the message isn't for us, maybe not even for Musk. So I think I'm going to choose to let it go. I've posted a lot of stupid and crazy stuff over the years, and I hope that he finds nothing but peace and forgiveness. So,
yeah.
Although I just thought of something. Did Elon respond?
No, of course not.
Man, I want to know if he does.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. And again, I just want to emphasize, I debated putting a disclaimer up front, and I decided not to. Yeah. Again, one of the possibilities here is the dude is having a mental breakdown, and we're normally a pretty jokey, lighthearted podcast. And the last thing I want anyone to think is, if you believe this guy's having a mental breakdown, that we're making fun of him or taking advantage of his mental state. Unless there's some clarification, I doubt we will be talking about Matthew Brown again, because if he is having a mental breakdown, I don't think it's right for us to drag him through the mud. But I also don't think it would be right for us to ignore this post, given that we just did a big episode about Matthew Brown and why I think he's a credible whistleblower. If you were to listen to the podcast and then find out a week later Matthew Brown tweeted a big QAnon thing, you would be forgiven for calling into question how credible a witness he is. So it's notable, it's newsworthy, it's worth talking about. And if he is having a mental breakdown, I sure hope he gets the help he needs, because that's a hell of a thing for anybody to go through. And he was clearly shaken by the experience of going public. And I wouldn't blame him if that was a crisis point for him. And if it is, I do not want us to be making fun of that. Dude needs help, and I hope he gets it.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on It's a Very Exciting Time. You can find show notes and more on our website, veryexcitingtime.com, as well as links to our Discord and social media accounts.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking back, and I don't think you said "in a nutshell" today. And I'm feeling like unresolved.
I always say it in the intro.
Can you say it again, though, just for us?
in a nutshell, you can find show notes and more on our website, veryexcitingtime.com.
Excellent. Thank you. And you can feel free to email us at Scott or Chuck at veryexcitingtime.com. If you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/veryexcitingtime or grab some merch from veryexcitingtime.com/merch.
And Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me talk about UFOs so she doesn't have to.